Everybody, good afternoon. Good Tuesday afternoon. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, back in downtown Pittsburgh after a weekend in Denver, a successful weekend in Denver for the Steelers, and one that leads still somehow to more questions about the quarterback position. One of those questions, as one can imagine, was posed earlier this afternoon to Mike Tomlin, and it was the usual, who's your guy, coach?
Again, I've stated where we are. At the beginning of week one, I said it was debatable, and so we were staying status quo, and Russ was in pole position. My position regarding the pecking order and the depth chart has not changed, guys, and it won't until the other guy gets healthy, and then we'll give it real consideration. Until then, I won't speculate. I don't know how many ways I can tell you guys that.
See, here's something. I don't know how much this is known, but in Denver, whenever Tomlin was done with his press conferences, he was walking off the stage there where the podium is sitting. He turns around and basically says to the group, what, no hypothetical quarterback questions? He's legitimately annoyed by this subject and by being asked about this subject, as you could just see there for yourself. And I got to be honest with you. I'm a little annoyed that he's annoyed because he's got to understand what it is that we do for a living. There's just no way around avoiding, hey, coach, who's your quarterback kind of questions when that's not clear. However, I partially believe Tomlin when he says that, how did he put it? Russ is still in pole position, and that's going to remain the case until he's fully healthy, and then we give it new consideration. But I also partially don't believe him. And when I say that, I mean it in the hypothetical, like this. See, there's a football game this coming Sunday. It's against these guys, and it's going to be over at Acrisure Stadium. These guys are pretty good. I think the Falcons are going to be decent too, as everybody just saw. The Broncos aren't. But these guys are going to present a real challenge for the Steelers on both sides of the ball. And as such, if Justin Fields beats these guys and he continues to perform, I don't want to say as he has, because then immediately everybody just bites back. One touchdown in 2 games, 1 touchdown in 2 games. How can you live with 1 touchdown in 2 games? He's Kenny Pickett all over again. No, he's not. He's 13th in the NFL right now in quarterback rating. He's 11th in completion percentage. And guess what? This is the number of turnovers he's had. That's pretty decent football under the circumstance. Under multiple circumstances, not least of which is that his offensive line hasn't played well, and he doesn't have a second wide receiver to target. So if he goes out there on Sunday and beats these guys and performs even just a little bit better, more productive anyway, than he has in the first 2 games, I can't be convinced that Tomlin comes back next Tuesday and says, hey, everybody, Russ is all the way healthy. He's ready to go. And now we're going to have a discussion. I mean, you can have your discussion, but guess what? You've also got your quarterback. This is so much, my friends, like the Mason Rudolph setting from last year. It might not seem like it, but Tomlin kept saying week after week, Mason staying with the hot hand. Remember the hot hand terminology? All Mason did was to continue to win and rally his teammates around him. That's what Fields is doing. And if Fields continues to do it, the decision is taken out of the head coach's hands, essentially, because he's not going to turn on his own players. Same exact script as the way last season ended. When we come back, I'm going to be joined by Chris Halleck from over on the South Side.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Joined now by Chris Halleck, who was at the Tomlin press conference on the South Side. And Chris, I don't know how else to ask this, but might there be some method to this madness?
I don't think so. I really just think this is Mike Tomlin just being completely sick and tired of asking or answering questions about the quarterback.
You think it's a media thing?
Whether it's a media thing or not, I just think Mike Tomlin wants to win football games, contrary to what some people might actually think. He just wants to win football games. Justin Fields is helping them win games. He doesn't think Russell Wilson or doesn't deem Russell Wilson being 100% healthy. So he's going to continue to ride with Justin. And I just think that that's just the way it's going to go. Until Russell Wilson is healthy, he's just going to continue to ride with Justin. And I think it's about as simple as it's going to get when it comes to that.
But you also know, Chris, that this head coach will play his mind games, and he'll do it in multiple directions, whatever it is that best suits the dynamic of the team. So if he were to have hypothetically walked into that room today and said, you know what, guys, I'm sold. Justin Fields is my guy. I've seen enough. I'm going with him. He's our dude. It makes no sense, really, on any front. Even if he's thinking it, it makes no sense to share that. One, because of Russ, because you might need him. And two, because, the other guy just might be one of those types, for all we know, who needs somebody behind him with his foot on the gas. Think about that for a second. He didn't have that in Chicago. There was no threat to him in Chicago for 3 years. Now there is.
There's one thing that he said when he was answering his kind of final question about it. He said, once the other guy gets healthy, then we'll give it real consideration. That was the little the little inkling to me of being like, oh, that if he's trying to kind of show some sort of pathway to Justin Fields being the actual QB1, that was the door just being pushed just a little bit like this. He didn't say when Russ comes back, he retains pole position. He didn't say when Russ comes back and he's completely healthy that he's going to be the guy. He said, then we'll give the whole thing some consideration. Right. And because the one thing, because he pointed back to week one whenever he said, Russ was in pole position. But the thing that's changed between then and now is that they're 2-0. They've won 2 games. Both of them are on the road. And that win in week 1 over Atlanta all of a sudden looks a lot better with what Atlanta did to Philadelphia.
Huh? We thought the Falcons were going to be okay.
Yeah, I had the Falcons winning 10 games at the beginning of the season. I think they're almost a slam.
Wouldn't go that
well,
far.
They're playing in a really crappy division. That's almost 6 wins right there.
That's fair.
So, I mean, I think they're the division winner there. It's a really bad division, but still they're the division winner there. I think maybe the Buccaneers, but either way, I'm just saying, like, maybe since 2-0, now the wheels are starting to turn for Tomlin just a little bit to be like, okay, now we might have to actually give it some real consideration once Russ is deemed healthy, and from Tomlin's perspective, as I deem him healthy, or as the doctors finally give me the clearance that I'm looking for. Because I think if Russ had his way, he'd be playing.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, look at how he's carrying himself. Full uniform, full all the pads as the emergency quarterback and everything. I'll say this. To date, and we can all pick apart Fields, this, that, and whatever else, or we can just isolate it to a single touchdown or whatever. But to me, if I'm Justin Fields, you know what I'm thinking about internally? I have literally checked every box so far because I have gotten the wins. Most importantly, I've turned the ball over 0 times. I have been really, really sharp with the throws, despite the line play, despite not having a second target, just having to look around to find where George is, despite not having a great, good, but not great running game. He's done everything so far. So if I'm Fields, I'm feeling pretty good about this right now because all I have to do is go out there against the Chargers and control the controllables. You know what I'm saying? I think this is the default right now for me. What I'm saying here, Chris, is he's the guy. It's in his hands. He can get this done.
I agree. And the main reason why, and I think for at least 6 quarters, this offense has moved the football. They've possessed the football.
Other than the second half. Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, the 62 yards, they didn't possess the ball very well. It was a pretty bad half. Mike Tomlin admitted as such today. Anybody watch the film, you could see it. It was just a bad half for everybody. Justin, the offensive line, everybody. It was just not a good half. But for 6 of 8 quarters, they've moved the football. They've possessed the football. That's kept the defense fresh, especially considering playing at least half of the game. For a good half of the game, the defense was fresh in the altitude, in the heat in Denver. That's a big deal. And if the offense can do this, now they need to score more points. Averaging 15.5 points a game ain't going to cut it.
No.
But if they continue on this trajectory, if they can possess the football, not give the ball to the other team, the way the defense is playing, they don't have to go out there and be world beaters.
They don't have to put up 30 points. No. The last thing I have for you today, Chris, people, you need to understand that this guy I'm talking to is sitting there in the Uber on the way to the Denver airport, sitting there watching the film. I don't know how you do that. Like, I have motion sickness like crazy. Then we get on the aircraft, 3.5-hour flight, and he's sitting there like this, looking at more film. And I know from sitting next to you in the press box that your point of interest here is Fields' play. What have you seen? Is he playing better than maybe most people realize?
Well, yes, and the way that you can, number one, you talked about already, he's not turning the ball over. He turned the ball over 41 times in 3 seasons in Chicago. And granted, 2 games, but still 2 games, 0 turnovers, and really not really any turnover-worthy plays.
Turnover-worthy, I was just about to say, he hasn't even really come close to them.
Now,
And he's made within that, Chris. Sorry, I'll shut up in a second. But he's also, you have seen him actively, consciously say, I got nothing there. And then just do nothing with it. That's a W in and of itself.
Yes, and I like one play in particular that I remember was in the first half in which he went to his check down really, really quickly, almost a little too quickly, but it was open. And Jalen got a first down doing it. So, like, it worked. Take the slam. That was one thing that was really missing from the Matt Canada offense was take the slam dunks when they're given to you. Like you just didn't see that enough. Justin at least has those in Arthur Smith's offense. The one thing that he does need to get better at is don't just try to default to George Pickens every single time. There were some times in which Pat Freiermuth was open and he could have hit him if he's going through his reads. So there needs to be more improvement when it comes to reads, but this is really just the continued growth of Justin Fields. I don't understand how anybody can watch what he's done in the first 2 games, not turn the ball over, have the offense move the football down the field, possess the ball for 6 of 8 quarters, and be upset about it. I just don't understand.
And make those deep throws, including the ones that get waved off. That's wow. Not since Ben, man. Not since Ben. Guys, when we come back, we're gonna do our J1Q segment. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
Welcome back. It's time for the J1Q segment. That stands for just one question for anybody who's new to our little world here. And we're going to Mississippi and Zane with an X.
Hey, DK, it's Zane. We met in the preseason this year. I'm so glad we stopped by your shop. My question is about Patrick Queen. What's happened? He's only had 6 tackles so far this year. Is he learning the defense? Is he lost a step? Is he playing out of position? What's going on with him?
Wow. That's a good question. And it's best of all, I think, not formed as a complaint, because I don't think that Queen has been bad. I thought he had some missed tackles, and actually he'd tell you that himself in week 1. But in week 2 in Denver, I did you can do this when you're watching the games live. You can just basically pick, meaning, in the stadium, whether that's as a fan, a media member, whatever. And you pick a player, you spotlight them, and you just follow them around as if you've got your own mythical circle underneath their feet. And Queen dropped back a lot. Queen was in coverage a lot. The Steelers were determined, and I think this was a little bit obvious, to make sure that every time Bo Nix looked up, he saw, He saw things that didn't make sense to him. He saw things that he never would have seen in college. The Steelers were emboldened by the fact that they were able to go with a 4-man rush against the Falcons. They did it a lot against the Broncos. Yeah, they pinned their ears back every once in a while. But the tackle count, which is the one thing that you specifically cited, Zane, that's a tough one on an inside linebacker in the modern NFL, because they're dropping back. You don't get any statistic for a solid coverage. I mean, you can get a pass defense if it's thrown your way, and he did have one of those against Denver. But it's not like the old school with the inside linebackers where everything defensively is being funneled toward the middle. Think about Hardy Nickerson or Lawrence Timmons, those types. Those don't exist anymore. You saw in Atlanta and in Denver both Queen and Peyton Wilson, and when he's been out there, and Landon Roberts, basically just being moved around, dropped around because of the nature of the opponents that they were facing. Now, is Queen playing at his best? He played better in Denver. I had a talk with him after the game. He mentioned, he didn't cite this as any kind of excuse or whatever, but he mentioned the challenges of the thin air and how he didn't necessarily prepare his best for it. He said something to the effect of how his mouth was parched and dry in the first quarter, and it took him about a quarter and change to get going. But I'll repeat it, he wasn't citing it as this is why I played terribly, because he didn't play terribly. You're not going to see big numbers, I believe, from this player, and you're not going to see splash from this player. Why? 2 reasons. One, this defensive front is built to stop the run before it gets to him. Cam Hayward has 7 tackles through 2 games. Mon Adams has 5. Keanu Benton has 5. Larry Ogunjobi has 5. That's a pretty nice distribution across the line. You've also seen Isaiah Loudermilk getting a little bit more involved. I don't see many people talking about that. And as a result, there aren't second-level tackles to be made, which is great. That's what you want. And the other part is, if you think about where the passes are being thrown and where they're being picked off, that's in the secondary. So I have the sense that Queen's doing what they want, but as you suggested yourself, that he's not all the way familiar with the defense. I've heard this from players at the inside linebacker position. I remember hearing it from Cole Holcomb and Quan Alexander when they were new last year. Roberts when he was new. It takes some time to figure out enough of a comfort level so that you're not making a mistake, and then from there, go and get aggressive. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody who checks out the Daily Shot Show. We're going to do another one of these again tomorrow.